The champagne glass clinked against the crystal, and every eye turned to my sister Vanessa. She stood at the head of our parents' dining table, her perfect smile gleaming under the chandelier light. "I want to make a toast," she announced, her voice carrying that familiar note of superiority. "To my wonderful son Noah, who turns 5 today. And to motherhood, the greatest gift a woman can receive." She paused, her eyes finding mine across the table. The smile never wavered, but something cold flickered beneath it. Some people might think success comes from careers or money, but we all know the truth. A woman isn't complete without children. Noah is living proof that motherhood is everything that matters in life. The room erupted in polite applause. Relatives nodded approvingly. My mother beamed with pride at her grandson and golden daughter. I forced my lips into a smile, my hands folded carefully in my lap to hide their trembling. The words hit like physical blows, each one carefully aimed at the wound Vanessa knew would hurt most. She raised her glass higher. "To those who understand what really makes life worth living." I lifted my water glass and smiled until my cheeks ached, pretending her words hadn't just shredded what was left of my heart. I made it to my car before the tears came. Sitting in my parents' driveway, I gripped the steering wheel and tried to breathe through the pain that felt like drowning. 5 years of fertility treatments. 5 years of hope and disappointment. 5 years of watching my body fail at the one thing society told me I was supposed to do naturally. Vanessa knew all of this. She had held my hand through the first miscarriage. She had driven me to doctor appointments when I couldn't face going alone. And then she had used it all as ammunition, wrapped in the pretty paper of a birthday toast. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, "Lovely party. Sorry you had to leave early." She hadn't even noticed that I was crying when I hugged her goodbye. Too distracted by her perfect grandson and successful daughter to see the broken one. I started the car and pulled out of the driveway, my vision blurred with tears. "She'll regret that someday," I whispered to my reflection in the rearview mirror. The words felt like a promise I was making to myself, though I had no idea how prophetic they would prove to be. 3 years earlier, Vanessa had sat in this same car, crying for different reasons. She had been trying to get pregnant for 2 years without success. "The doctor says IVF is our best option," she had sobbed. "But it's so expensive, Erin. $20,000 we don't have." I had written the check that same day. My savings account emptied without hesitation because my sister needed help creating the family she desperately wanted. "You're the best sister in the world," she had whispered, hugging me tight. "When this works, you'll be the most amazing aunt." The first round failed. I paid for the second. The third round took, and 9 months later, Noah was born. I was in the delivery room, holding Vanessa's hand, crying happy tears when he took his first breath. I loved him instantly and completely. But somewhere between his birth and today, something had shifted in Vanessa. Success had made her cruel. Motherhood had given her a weapon she wielded without mercy. "Some people just aren't meant to be mothers," she had told me 6 months ago, when I mentioned considering adoption. Those words had haunted me ever since. Tonight's toast was just the latest twist of the knife. The months that followed the birthday party were filled with increasingly tense family gatherings. Vanessa seemed to take pleasure in highlighting her perfect life, the beautiful house, the successful husband, the precious son who called her mommy in his sweet little voice. Her social media became a carefully curated showcase of maternal bliss. Photos of Noah's first day of school, family vacations, cozy bedtime stories. Each post felt like a personal attack, a reminder of everything I would never have. I quietly unfollowed her accounts. When my mother asked why I wasn't commenting on Vanessa's posts anymore, I made excuses about being busy with work. The truth was simpler and more painful. Watching my sister's happiness had become unbearable. Family dinners became ordeals I endured rather than enjoyed. Vanessa would make subtle comments about complete families and real priorities. She never said my name, but everyone understood who she was talking about. I started declining invitations. Christmas, Easter, birthdays, I found reasons to be elsewhere, anything to avoid the constant reminder of my failures. My parents worried that I was becoming antisocial. Vanessa told them I was just going through a difficult phase. None of them understood that their golden girl was systematically destroying our relationship, one cruel comment at a time. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was making coffee. My mother's voice was strained and urgent. "Erin, I need you to sit down. Vanessa's in trouble." I set my mug on the counter, my heart already racing. "What kind of trouble?" "It's Brandon. The police arrested him last night. Something about his company's finances. The news is calling it embezzlement." Brandon was Vanessa's husband, a successful financial advisor who managed investments for wealthy clients. Their lifestyle had always seemed too lavish for his claimed income, but I had assumed he was just good at his job. "How much trouble?" I asked, though I was afraid to hear the answer. "Millions, apparently. It's going to be on the news tonight. Vanessa's hiding at home with Noah, terrified to leave the house." Through the phone, I could hear muffled crying in the background. It sounded like Vanessa. "She's asking if she can stay with you," my mother continued. "Just temporarily, until this all gets sorted out." I closed my eyes, remembering the birthday toast, the cruel comments, the years of deliberate humiliation. She's asking for my help? She knows you have space, and it would be good for Noah to be away from the reporters. Noah. My heart clenched at the thought of that sweet little boy caught in the middle of this chaos. The news broke that evening like a bomb. Brandon's face was on every channel, looking haggard in his arrest photo. The headlines were brutal: financial advisor steals millions, Ponzi scheme devastates investors, family man's double life exposed. The amounts were staggering. Brandon had been running an elaborate fraud for years, using new investors' money to pay fake returns to existing clients. When the scheme finally collapsed, he had stolen over $12 million. His and Vanessa's assets were immediately frozen pending investigation. Their house, cars, bank accounts, everything was tied up in legal proceedings that could take years to resolve. I watched the coverage with a mixture of shock and grim satisfaction. Vanessa's perfect life was crumbling in real time, broadcast for the world to see. My phone rang constantly throughout the evening. Reporters had somehow gotten my number, asking for comments about my brother-in-law's crimes and my sister's reaction. I declined all interviews and turned off my phone. Around midnight, there was a soft knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Vanessa standing on my doorstep, holding Noah's hand. She looked like she had aged 10 years in one day. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Noah clutched a small backpack, looking confused and scared. "Please, Erin," she whispered when I opened the door. "We have nowhere else to go." I stepped aside without a word. "Come in." They slept on my couch that first night, Vanessa curled up under a throw blanket while Noah nestled against her side. I gave them pillows and found extra blankets, then retreated to my room to process what was happening. My sister, who had spent years mocking my empty house and childless life, was now seeking shelter in both. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. I lay awake listening to their quiet breathing, wondering how long they would stay and what this meant for all of us. In the morning, I woke to find Noah sitting at my kitchen table, still in his dinosaur pajamas. Vanessa was asleep on the couch, looking exhausted even in sleep. "Are you hungry?" I asked him softly. He nodded, his big brown eyes serious and worried. "Mommy's been crying a lot." I made him pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, the way I had seen Vanessa do in her social media posts. His face lit up with the first genuine smile I had seen since they arrived. "You're good at this," he said, syrup dripping down his chin. When Vanessa finally woke up, she found us building a tower with blocks while breakfast dishes dried in the sink. "You've always been so good with kids," she said quietly, watching Noah explain the architectural principles of his tower to me. The comment stung because it was true. I was good with children, just not my own. The first week passed in a strange routine. I got up early to make breakfast while Vanessa slept late, exhausted from stress and legal meetings. I drove Noah to school because Vanessa was afraid of being recognized by other parents who might have seen the news. Noah adapted quickly to the changes. He was a resilient little boy, accepting that Daddy was away and they were staying with Aunt Erin for a while. I found myself looking forward to our morning drives to school. He would chatter about his friends, his teacher, the books they were reading. His innocent observations made me laugh in ways I hadn't in months. One morning, as I was buckling him into his car seat, he looked up at me with complete trust. "Auntie Mommy," he said, then caught himself. "I mean, Aunt Erin." The slip of the tongue hit me like lightning. For just a moment, I had been mommy to someone. Vanessa was still asleep when we returned from school, empty wine bottles on the counter suggesting why. I helped Noah with his homework, made him a snack, and listened to him read from his favorite book. These were the moments I had dreamed of during all those failed fertility treatments. The daily rhythms of caring for a child, being needed and trusted and loved unconditionally. I pushed away the guilt that came with enjoying it while my sister's life fell apart. As the days turned into weeks, a new pattern emerged. I became Noah's primary caregiver while Vanessa struggled to cope with her new reality. She slept until noon, then spent hours on the phone with lawyers and financial advisors trying to salvage something from the wreckage of her life. She cried frequently and drank more than she should. I packed Noah's lunches, helped with his homework, read bedtime stories, and tucked him in each night. He started coming to me first when he needed something, a natural shift that both thrilled and worried me. "You're like his second mommy," Vanessa said one evening, watching me help Noah brush his teeth. There was something sharp in her voice, an edge that suggested she wasn't entirely comfortable with how natural I was at caring for her son. But she was also grateful. The responsibilities of single parenting while dealing with a legal crisis were overwhelming, and I provided stability that she couldn't manage alone. One morning, Noah woke up from a nightmare and ran to my room instead of the couch where Vanessa slept. I held him until he calmed down, whispering that he was safe and everything would be okay. As I rubbed his back, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. This wasn't just helping out during a crisis anymore. I was falling in love with being his mother. The custody hearing for Brandon was brutal. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 10. The news coverage was extensive, showing Vanessa leaving the courthouse looking devastated. That night, she came home and drank an entire bottle of wine by herself. Noah was asleep in what had become his room, my former office that I had converted with a twin bed and toy chest. "At least you finally have a kid now," she slurred from the couch, her words cutting through the darkness. I was cleaning up the kitchen, trying to give her space to process her grief. The comment stopped me cold. "What did you say?" "You heard me. You always wanted kids, and now you've got one. Congratulations." The bitterness in her voice was toxic, turning my love for Noah into something ugly and predatory. "Vanessa, you're drunk. You should go to sleep." "I'm drunk, but I'm not stupid. I see how you look at him. I see how he runs to you instead of me." She was crying now, angry tears that came from losing everything she had once used to define herself. I helped her to bed, biting back the words I wanted to say. She was grieving, hurting, lashing out at the person trying to help her. But her accusation echoed in my head as I checked on Noah one more time before going to bed myself. The tension between us continued to build over the following weeks. Vanessa resented my growing bond with Noah while simultaneously depending on me to care for him. She had started drinking earlier in the day, often finishing her first glass of wine before Noah came home from school. The stress of her legal battles and financial ruin was taking its toll in ways that worried me. One afternoon, I found her passed out on the couch while Noah played quietly in his room. When I woke her up, she was disoriented and defensive. "I'm just tired," she insisted. "Taking care of everything is exhausting." "You're not taking care of everything," I said as gently as I could. "I'm helping." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Don't talk about him like he's your responsibility. He's my son." The possessiveness in her voice was alarming, especially since she had been increasingly absent from his daily care. "I know he's your son," I replied carefully. "But right now, he needs stability. We both want what's best for him. What's best for him is being with his mother, not his aunt who's trying to replace me." The accusation hung between us like a loaded weapon. Part of me wanted to deny it, but honesty made me hesitate. Was I trying to replace her? The thought terrified me because I wasn't entirely sure of the answer. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Noah's teacher called my phone because Vanessa had forgotten to pick him up from school. I raced across town, my heart pounding with worry and anger. When I arrived, Noah was sitting in the office with red-rimmed eyes, clutching his backpack. "I thought you forgot me too," he whispered when he saw me. Those words shattered something inside my chest. The idea that this innocent little boy thought he had been abandoned broke my heart completely. I knelt down and pulled him into my arms. "I will never forget you, sweetheart. Never." The drive home was quiet. Noah stared out the window while I tried to figure out what to say to Vanessa. When we arrived, I found her asleep on the couch again, an empty wine glass on the coffee table. She woke up when we walked in, looking confused about the time. "Oh no," she said, reality hitting her. "I was supposed to pick him up." "Yes, you were." Noah ran to his room without speaking to her. I could hear him crying through the closed door. "It was an accident," Vanessa said defensively. I fell asleep. "These medications make me drowsy." I looked at the wine glass, then at my sister's bloodshot eyes. "This can't happen again, Vanessa." He was scared. "Don't lecture me about my own son." But even as she said it, I could see the shame in her face. She knew she was failing him. That weekend, I made the hardest decision of my life. I contacted a family lawyer and filed for temporary guardianship of Noah. The paperwork was straightforward but emotionally devastating. I had to document Vanessa's drinking, her missed responsibilities, the pattern of neglect that had developed. I also had to examine my own motives. Was I doing this to protect Noah, or to finally have the child I had always wanted? The honest answer was both. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Vanessa had been served with papers but hadn't responded or hired a lawyer. When Tuesday arrived, I sat in the courthouse waiting room, my hands shaking with nerves. My lawyer assured me that given the circumstances, the judge would likely grant temporary custody. Vanessa never showed up. At 2 p.m., the judge called our case. I testified about Noah's needs, Vanessa's struggles, and my ability to provide stable care. "Where is the child's mother?" the judge asked. "We've been unable to reach her, Your Honor," my lawyer replied. The judge reviewed the documents for less than 5 minutes before signing the order. I walked out of that courthouse with legal custody of the child I had helped raise for months. The victory felt hollow because it came at the cost of my sister's complete breakdown. Life with Noah as his legal guardian was everything I had dreamed it would be. We developed routines that brought structure and joy to both our lives. Mornings began with pancakes and reading together at the kitchen table. I drove him to school and picked him up each afternoon. Evenings were filled with homework, dinner, and bedtime stories. He thrived under the consistent care and attention. His teacher commented on how much happier he seemed, how his academic performance had improved. For the first time in years, I felt complete. The house that had once felt empty and sad was now filled with laughter and love. Noah had his own room decorated with his favorite books and toys. We established traditions like Friday night movie marathons and Saturday morning trips to the library. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he wrapped his arms around my neck. "I love you, Aunt Erin," he whispered. "You make everything better." "I love you too, sweetheart. You're safe here, always." The words were both a promise and a prayer. I would do everything in my power to protect this precious child who had become my world. As I turned off his light and closed his door, I allowed myself to believe that maybe this was how our story was meant to end. I was wrong. Vanessa disappeared for 6 weeks. No phone calls, no texts, no contact with anyone in the family. My mother was frantic with worry, but I focused on maintaining stability for Noah. He asked about his mommy occasionally, but seemed content with the explanation that she was getting better and would visit when she felt ready. The rumors reached us eventually. Vanessa had checked herself into a rehabilitation facility 2 hours away, seeking treatment for alcohol dependency and depression. Part of me was relieved that she was finally getting help. Another part worried about what her recovery might mean for Noah's custody. When she finally returned, she looked different. Thinner, sober, but with an intensity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She knocked on my door on a Sunday afternoon, looking nervous and determined. "I'm better now," she announced. "I've been in treatment, and I'm ready to take Noah back." Noah was playing in the backyard, oblivious to the conversation happening in my living room. "That's wonderful that you're feeling better," I said carefully. "But custody transitions need to be gradual. Noah needs time to adjust. He's my son, Erin. Not yours." The old possessiveness was back, sharper now that she was sober and focused. "I know he's your son. But he's been through a lot of changes. We need to think about what's best for him." Through the window, I watched Noah building a fort with couch cushions, content and secure in his routine. "He's not ready," I said finally. Vanessa's face hardened at my words. The fragile piece of her recovery cracked, revealing the desperation underneath. "Not ready? He's 5 years old. He needs his mother. He needs stability. He needs someone who won't disappear when things get difficult." The words came out harsher than I intended, but they were true. Noah had been abandoned once already. I wouldn't let it happen again. "That's not fair," Vanessa said, her voice rising. "I was sick. I'm better now. Being better for 6 weeks doesn't erase months of neglect." We were interrupted by Noah running into the room, his face bright with excitement about his blanket fort. He stopped short when he saw Vanessa, uncertainty replacing his joy. "Hi, Mommy," he said quietly, moving closer to me. The simple gesture, his instinctive movement toward the person who represented safety, said everything about how much had changed. Vanessa saw it too. Her face crumpled with the realization that her son no longer automatically turned to her for comfort. "Noah, baby, I've missed you so much," she said, kneeling down with outstretched arms. He looked at me for permission before giving her a polite hug. The interaction was heartbreaking in its careful distance. After Vanessa left, promising to figure things out, Noah curled up beside me on the couch. "Is Mommy taking me away?" he asked in a small voice. "No one is taking you anywhere," I promised, hoping it was true. 2 weeks later, I was served with papers. Vanessa had hired a lawyer and was petitioning the court to reverse my guardianship. Her filing painted me as a manipulative aunt who had taken advantage of her temporary crisis to steal her child. She claimed I had brainwashed Noah against her and was preventing their natural bond from healing. The accusations were both false and devastating. My own lawyer reviewed the documents with a grim expression. "She's going to claim that your guardianship was inappropriate, that she was never truly unfit, just going through a difficult period." What about the drinking? The missed school pickup? The months of neglect? We'll present all of that evidence. The question is whether the judge will see this as a temporary crisis that's now resolved, or a pattern that makes her unfit for custody. I spent the next week gathering documentation. Medical records, school reports, witness statements from Noah's teacher about his improved behavior under my care. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. My mother, despite her loyalty to Vanessa, provided me with copies of voicemails Vanessa had left during her worst periods. One in particular stood out. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. He's better off with Erin. She can have him. I'm done." This could win the case, my lawyer said after hearing it. "It shows clear abandonment." I listened to my sister's broken voice on that recording and felt no satisfaction, only sadness for how far we had all fallen. The courtroom was packed for the custody hearing. Vanessa sat with her lawyer, looking professional and composed. I sat with mine, my heart pounding with anxiety. Vanessa testified first, presenting herself as a devoted mother who had overcome addiction and was ready to reclaim her rightful role. She spoke eloquently about her love for Noah and her commitment to providing him with a stable home. My sister took advantage of my temporary crisis, she said, her voice breaking with apparent emotion. She used my darkest moment to steal my child. Her performance was convincing. I watched the judge taking notes and wondered if I was about to lose the most important battle of my life. When my lawyer cross-examined her, the cracks began to show. Mrs. Bradley, how many times did you visit Noah during your 6 weeks in rehabilitation? The facility didn't allow visits initially. How many times did you call him? A long pause. I was focused on my recovery. So the answer is 0 visits and 0 phone calls? Then my lawyer played the voicemail. Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom, slurred and desperate. I can't do this anymore. He's better off with Erin. She can have him. I'm done. The transformation in the judge's expression was immediate and decisive. The judge's ruling was swift and unequivocal. Custody would remain with me, with supervised visitation rights for Vanessa. The evidence shows a pattern of abandonment and instability that cannot be overlooked, the judge said. While I commend Ms. Bradley's efforts to address her addiction, the child's welfare must be the primary consideration. Vanessa stormed out of the courtroom, sobbing and angry. I felt no triumph, only relief that Noah's future was secure. Outside the courthouse, Noah waited with my mother, who had agreed to watch him during the hearing. When he saw me, he ran into my arms. Did the judge say I can stay with you? He asked, his face full of hope and worry. Yes, sweetheart. You can stay with me forever if you want to. He hugged me tighter than ever before. I want to, he whispered. Can I call you Mom now? The question took my breath away. After years of failed attempts to become a mother, this precious boy was asking if he could give me the title I had dreamed of. If that's what you want, I managed to say through my tears. I want to, he said firmly. You're my real mom now. In that moment, standing outside a courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon, I finally became the mother I was always meant to be. 5 years passed like a beautiful dream. Noah grew from a scared little boy into a confident 10-year-old who excelled at school and had a close circle of friends. We moved to a bigger house with a yard where he could play. I changed jobs to have more flexibility for his schedule. We took family vacations, attended school events, and built a life that felt natural and complete. He called me Mom without hesitation now, and I had legally adopted him when he turned 7. The paperwork made official what had been true in our hearts for years. Vanessa had disappeared from our lives again after losing the custody battle. There had been no visits, no birthday calls, no contact of any kind. Sometimes I wondered if she thought about Noah, if she regretted the choices that had cost her everything. But mostly, I focused on the future we were building together. Noah rarely asked about his birth mother anymore. When he did, I answered honestly but simply. She wasn't able to take care of you, so you came to live with me. And I'm grateful every day that you did. I thought that chapter of our lives was closed forever. I was wrong again. The knock on our door came on a Saturday morning. Noah was at a friend's house for a sleepover, so I was alone when I answered. Vanessa stood on my doorstep, looking older but healthier than when I had last seen her. Her hair was shorter, her clothes simpler, and her eyes held a clarity that had been missing for years. Hello, Erin, she said quietly. I know I have no right to be here, but I need to talk to you. I stepped aside to let her in, my mind racing with questions and concerns. I've been in therapy for 3 years, she began without preamble. I've been sober for 4. I have a job, an apartment, a stable life. I'm ready to be Noah's mother again. The words hit me like a physical blow. After 5 years of silence, she was back to claim the child who had become my entire world. Vanessa, Noah doesn't even remember you clearly anymore. You've been gone for 5 years. I know. I've thought about him every single day. I've thought about what I lost, what I threw away. I'm ready to make it right. I looked at this woman who had once been my sister, trying to reconcile her with the person who had abandoned her son twice. He already has a mother, I said quietly. He has me. Her face crumpled with pain, but her voice remained steady. I know you love him. I know you've given him a good life. But he's still my son, biologically. I want the chance to be his mother. Over the next week, Vanessa made her case through lawyers and family mediators. She had indeed transformed her life, maintaining sobriety and stability for years. But Noah's reaction to seeing her again was telling. He was polite but distant, treating her like a stranger who happened to know his name. I don't remember her very much, he confided to me after their supervised visit. She seems nice, but she's not my mom. You're my mom. The custody evaluation was thorough and painful. Social workers interviewed all of us, reviewed our homes, examined the evidence of our respective abilities to provide for Noah's needs. In the end, biology wasn't enough to overcome abandonment. While Ms. Bradley has made significant personal improvements, the judge ruled, the child has been in stable placement for 5 years. Disrupting that relationship would not serve his best interests. Vanessa's petition was denied. She broke down in the courtroom, years of grief and regret pouring out in heartbroken sobs. He's all I have left, she cried to anyone who would listen. He's the only family I have. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but my protective instincts were stronger than my sympathy. You had him, I replied quietly as we left the courthouse. You had him, and you chose to leave. Twice. She stared at me with recognition of the truth we both knew, some choices can't be undone. In the courthouse parking lot, Vanessa's composure finally shattered completely. She collapsed against her car, sobbing with the raw grief of someone who had lost everything that mattered. You stole my son, she screamed, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. Other people stared as they walked past, some recognizing the drama from news coverage of the custody hearing. I turned slowly to face her, this woman who had once been my sister, my friend, my partner in childhood adventures. I didn't steal him, Vanessa. You gave him away. The words were quiet but final. They carried the weight of 5 years of anger, hurt, and protective love. When he was scared and needed his mother, you chose alcohol. When he needed stability, you chose to disappear. When he needed love, you gave him abandonment. She looked up at me from the pavement, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I was sick, she whispered. And he was 5 years old, I replied. He needed a mother, not an excuse. I walked away then, leaving her crying in the parking lot. Noah was waiting at home, probably wondering if his life was about to change again. He deserved an answer, and I finally had one to give him. 6 months later, I sat in the auditorium of Noah's elementary school, watching him perform in the 5th grade spring musical. He played a tree in the forest scene, standing perfectly still until his moment to bloom. When his turn came, he spread his arms wide and grinned at the audience, his confidence shining brighter than the stage lights. That's my son, I whispered to the empty seat beside me, wishing I had someone to share this moment with. As if he had heard me, Noah found my face in the crowd and waved. Then, during a quiet moment in the song, he mouthed a single word, Mom. It was the first time he had called me that in public, with witnesses, making our relationship official in the most natural way possible. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I waved back, overwhelmed by the perfection of this ordinary moment. After the show, Noah ran to me with the excitement of a child who knew he was loved unconditionally. Did you see me bloom? He asked, still wearing his tree costume. You were magnificent, I told him, meaning every word. As we walked to the car together, his small hand in mine, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. 5 years ago, I had been the childless sister, mocked and pitted by someone who couldn't see past biology to understand what family really meant. Now I was simply Noah's mom, and he was my son, bound together by choice rather than genetics. Driving home from the school play, Noah chattered excitedly about his performance while I listened with the contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. "Mom," he said suddenly, his voice growing serious, "I'm glad you're my mom and not her." The comment was unprompted, but I understood what had triggered it. He was old enough now to piece together the story of his early years, to understand what he had been saved from. "She gave birth to you," I said carefully, "but motherhood isn't about biology. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard." "Like you do," he said with the certainty of a child who had never doubted his place in the world. "Like I do," I agreed. That night, as I tucked him into bed in the house we had made our home, I reflected on the strange path that had led us here. Vanessa had mocked me for being childless, using my infertility as a weapon to make herself feel superior. She had measured my worth by my ability to conceive, dismissing everything else about who I was. But when her perfect life crumbled and she couldn't handle the responsibilities of parenthood, I was there. When Noah needed someone to show up consistently, to love him unconditionally, to put his needs before my own pain, I did. Motherhood, I had learned, isn't about the ability to give birth. It's about the willingness to give everything else that comes after. Vanessa had given Noah life, but I had given him a mother. And in saving him, he had saved me too, filling the empty spaces in my heart that I thought would remain hollow forever. She had mocked me for being childless, never knowing that someday I would mother the child she couldn't keep.